I hate standing behind a podium, so I'm going to sneak out here a little bit. Thank you so much for coming today. So how many of you came today to escape the heat and come into some nice, cool air conditioning? Okay. All right, so it's a pretty good crowd here. I got a head count from Facebook, and it's a pretty good showing. Thank you so much for attending. This is when Gail contacted me. I said, "Are you sure you want me to come talk to you?" And she said, "Yes, I remember you. We've networked in the creative community, and I've really enjoyed you." And I said, "Well, I haven't done pastels since I was in art school." And she says, "Well, just come anyway." Okay. So I want to tell you how I stumbled on this topic. Many of you who know me here in the audience know that, like any other artist, I got my bachelor's degree half a century ago in studio art. And even though I've had a parallel career, we all have to have, that day job to keep us going and pay the bills. So I had a day job that sort of wound into this whole brain thinking, not just the creative side, the right brain. I had a little bit of the left brain going for me too, and I ended up working at Sandia National Laboratories for about 20 years. So I was getting to retire about 10 years ago, and I had been working with these geniuses, Nobel laureates, very scientific minds, some theoretical physicists. Someone asked me, "Is your talk about physics?" And no, it's not about physics. But, one thing I discovered, especially about the theoretical physicists or the theoretical, people in that world, scientists, how creative they were. All of them, some of them had the most amazing paintings they painted in their garage and showed no one, or they were doing something very creative in their life. What I learned from my colleagues was that there's the mind of a scientist is they think, what are the options? What are the many different possibilities that could happen in the universe out there? And taking this big, strong spectrum of possibilities and saying, what could be? Now, didn't you ever think like that when you were doing a painting? What are the possibilities and what could be? And so I was getting ready to retire, and I thought, well, way back a half a century ago when I was in New York, we'd go down to Soho, down to Canal Street, we go to these little galleries and see these wonderful abstract expressionist paintings, which you can see here in the museum. They have an Elaine de Kooning in there that's to die for, So I thought, oh, that was the movement. That was exciting. That was something that we could grab onto a trend, right? So 10 years ago, do you know what the trend is today? Someone tell me what the trend in art is today. It's not Eric Rhodes, there's a plein air movement. Believe me, that's not the trend. That's an inspiration, definitely a foundation, but it's not a trend. So I thought, well, I started to explore what is the trend in art? Why was there a renaissance that created this enormous creative boost back after the Black Plague? And now I'm getting up here, we have another worldwide plague. What is happening to our society? Did you ever wonder? Okay. So I noticed the world had changed drastically. And today I'm going to help you try to understand some new thinking to inspire your own creativity. So here, one thing about the Pastel Society, you come here as an individual, a creative individual, and then you come into a collective. right? You have a connection with other people that's so important for your passion, isn't it? But how do you fit into the greater movement, the greater trend of art? Okay, so today what I'll cover in my presentation is the New Renaissance. Okay. By the way, everything in this presentation is original, and all of those illustrations I created myself. Okay. All right. So we have the New Renaissance. Of course, I had to make her a lady, right? All right. So the New Renaissance. I'm going to talk about, and you have a handout on the entanglement, the Krebs cycle of creativity, by one of the greatest thinkers of the modern era, Neri Oxman from MIT Media Lab. Current or overarching trends, your new role as a fine artist, opportunities and responsibilities for artists currently in our society, and what legacy, we're going to talk about, what legacy do you want to leave? I love this quote, artists are the gatekeepers of truth. Okay. So we are living in a new era, a new modern renaissance. Okay. All right, the past Renaissance, which was again triggered by the Black Plague and the resource constraints after that, after losing quite a bit of the world's population, we had to have creative, innovative thinkers. And it sparked this new explanation that came out of the clerical age into a age of humanism. So there was a surge of artistic, scientific, and philosophical innovation. So artists were no longer just the creators of religious art, but they started creating, think of Rembrandt, creating the human side of representation of individuals, people baking in their house, those gathering in the field. There was a new surge of image making at that time in the Renaissance. So it was, the new introduction was an introduction of emotion, something coming from the individual, from the internal, instead of the external control of the religious society that we were coming out of during the Renaissance era. So right now, we're in this new Renaissance where we have reason and science, but we have a challenging of the status quo. We're relying on critical thinking, logical, empirical evidence to solve problems. But other than the divine revelation, I was guided by higher power to do what I'm doing instead of coming from a place of reason. So there's new ethics and compassion. There's a belief that mortality is an inherent human construct driven by empathy, fairness, and desire to minimize suffering. So I think about this during COVID. That was one thing that everyone wanted. They want to minimize suffering all the way around, right down to our kitchens and in our houses, right? A focus on the here and now, treating this life as the only one we know for certain instead of the hereafter, okay? And dedicating efforts to make a better world and a better place for all. So I gave you a handout. So we're living in an age of entanglement. Everybody sort of knows there's a jumble of things going on right now. A decision is made, then it's changed. A law is made, it's changed. A protocol is made, it's changed. And then there's like more restrictions, more rules. Then there's rules taken away, and it's like a gumbo soup. Life is a gumbo soup. And it's like rowing a boat in a plate of spaghetti, right? Sometimes we get mired down right now. But, well, if I'm going to be an artist the rest of my life, how can I produce art if I'm rowing a boat in a plate of spaghetti, right? So the boundaries between disciplines start to blur. Like, who's doing what? Especially with technology now, is that how many people use a computer? How many people use a smartphone? 20 years ago, how many people were using a smartphone? Okay, so the boundaries are blurred. Your daily life you can't go anywhere without your phone now, but we were able to before. Now we're blurred, where we have become technology ourselves in a way, or technology driven. Artists find themselves at the crossroads of digital innovation, social transformation, and a global dialogue. And that's basically the precedence of what I'll be talking about today. And by the way, if you have any questions at any time, just shout them out to me and I'll be happy to inspire a dialogue. So let me explain to you a little bit about this. This is Neri Oxman's thesis on the Krebs cycle of creativity. Does anyone know what the Krebs cycle is? Okay. On a cellular level, we generate our own healing, our own metabolisms on the cellular level in mitochondria in the cells. In the mitochondria in the cells, there's something called the Krebs cycle. That's the thing that keeps us going. You know, it takes a few days to regenerate. You cut yourself, 14 days later you heal, right? That's the Krebs cycle that happens. What I'm proposing, and I think it aligns with a lot of what the Pastel Society is doing today, is how do we regenerate the artistic collective to move in a direction that brings society into a new level. In this room, I only count 2 people who have naturally dark hair. Okay, so in other words, what do I see here? Do we see regeneration of the ages within this room? What I'm talking about now is, in order to regenerate the artist, you're all wonderful artists. You can bring the whole society into a new level of creativity, regenerate your organization, and regenerate your own movement. Some of you have already done it. Some of you are in a cycle of creativity within yourselves. But I imagine that most of you aren't. And I wasn't 10 years ago when I was trying to figure this all out. So I gave you handouts. If you don't have handouts, just raise your hand and someone will give you a handout. But let me explain to you this cycle of creativity. Let's start with science. Okay. What happened during the Renaissance with science is science wanted to explore the possibilities of what could be. And they used science to explain and predict the world around them. Okay? So we had Sir Isaac Newton, we had Galileo, who actually ended up in prison for his forward-thinking thought. And they came up with a lot of data, and taking data. Look, think of Da Vinci's notebooks, where he has conceptual ideas, and you can see up at the top of it says non-applied. That's conceptual, a conceptual thought, theoretical thought. And artists have theoretical thoughts too. There's a philosophy where you have thought, you collect data turns into information, scientists theoretically prove it, and bring it into reality. So it turns from information into knowledge, and the knowledge becomes applied. Then you have engineer like Brancusi. Remember Brancusi from the Renaissance? He built the Duomo in Florence. Okay, there was a new engineering. He was considered an artist, but he's also an engineer. He was able to take these new concepts, apply them in a way that was tangible and useful and utilitarian. And that's what engineers do. And I worked with both scientists and engineers. I much preferred scientists. But engineers have a tendency to make all the rules, and I didn't like that. So they take something that might be more conceptual, and they'll make it a reality. So they embody a solution to problems. So they apply it to the real world problems. And so then the design becomes utility, becomes something useful in society. And another type of artist who does this are potters. Right? They take that clay, they turn it into utility, and then we use it to solve a problem, which is to drink our coffee in the morning, right? So it makes a container. So that's an applied economy, and there's a lot of economy that can happen after that. I don't know. I think I see only 2 or 3 people in this room that actually are full-time artists who make a living and make money at this. So I don't know how many of you do make money at your artwork, but if you are a potter in a production party, which I was at one time, you can make a living out of creating mugs to drink your coffee, right? So then this moves into a more applied area, moving into culture and away from nature. Okay, nature being, nature being the nature of life, the atomic theory. That's what we mean by nature. Moving into production and culture. So design brings us into the state where we maximize the function and augment the human experience. Does anyone have an example of this? Of the design that does this? How many of you have iPhones? Okay. All right. Steve Jobs actually used a process called design thinking, which I was trained in, and I used at Sandia Labs to work with scientists and engineers to help them move through this cycle into this higher level of utility. Okay. So then what happens, it changes behavior. So when the iPhone came out, did you know what it was or how to do it? No, and then it became part of your life. And then what happened? Your behavior changed. And then one day you dropped your phone in the toilet because you're not supposed to have it in the bathroom and you ruined your iPhone. And then what happened to your behavior? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have my phone. I said, what? Oh, I have to call so-and-so. Oh, I have to better my friends. Oh my God, what's their phone number? Okay. So it's like it's changed your whole behavior. Okay. It's changed societal behavior. I'm going to tell you what happened a month ago. Do you know what happened a month ago? Have you noticed if you're on your phone, everything's slow? You go check out at the grocery store and you're waiting for the credit card to go through? Okay, I've seen a lot of heads nodding yes. A month ago, a new platform was launched of an AI crawler on the internet, and it flooded the internet and is going to continue congesting the internet. There's more AI search traffic on the internet right now than there is human traffic on the internet. And so it's causing congestion, slowing everything up. So many of the people who have servers for your internet have to go and make more robustness, and it's just going to continue. Okay, so that's another change in global societal behavior because of a design. Okay, all right. See, you're understanding here the impact and how this is a geometric progression. It's getting bigger and bigger as we go around until we come to artists. Okay. Now we are artists. What's all this doing? It's coming around and smacking us in the behind, right? Okay. So one of the things that I noticed some of my colleagues have been doing recently is like, what is the dialogue around AI and art? Well, that's getting down in the rabbit hole, and they're missing the big societal picture of what's going on here. And do we really care? How many people really care about AI and art? I don't. When Photoshop came out, did anyone care? Well, we sort of like embraced it. We thought, well, this is a great tool. We can use this tool. So what art does is perception and culture, but it's expression. Okay, it's no longer explanation or exploration. It's expression with 3 E's. Okay, it's we question human behavior. How many of you say, why did the political so-and-so say this? They're crazy, you know? So we're questioning it. We're creating awareness in the world. And next show you go to, and if you have a really, really good judge, see who they select. Because I bet you 10 times out of 12, they'll be selecting some piece of artwork that has expressed some sort of creative awareness to give to the viewer in a new way. And if a judge does not select that, question the judge, because we're supposed to be questioning things, right? So, and I bet you next time you go, I'm going to give you a good example. This lady right here has lots of ribbons. Her work is extraordinary. The expression of those individuals in her artwork, you know what they're thinking sometimes, and you convey that to the judges, and that's why you've got so many ribbons. Okay, so a really good example in the room. So these new perceptions inspire new scientific explorations. So if you want to see where things begin, I'm going to go back to Leonardo da Vinci. Was he an artist or was he a scientist? Okay. He was in this conceptual area and expressing things that were creating new thought around him. You might have seen his notebooks with a lot of different contraptions that he made. Almost all of them he stole from other people. Almost every single one of them. I read a dialogue on it, and it wasn't that he took it exactly. He was inspired by someone else's work and took it the next level, but he's known for it. Now, this is a good example of what I was just talking about, is moving things, getting data, information, and moving it to the next level. Well, don't we do that too as artists? We're inspired by something else. You can be inspired by another piece of artwork, but you can be inspired by watching a hummingbird in a feeder, right? So there's lots of new ways of doing this. So okay, so this is Neri Oxman's work from this is from the journal Design and Science, January 2015, and that's the year I was starting to make my plans to retire from my job. I got, oh my God, this woman is one of the best minds I've seen in a long time. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? And how is this applied to today's world? So I'm thinking of an entanglement, thinking how we came into entanglement and how we're going to get out of entanglement, if ever. Okay. So I'm going to talk about each one of these trends in a little bit more detail. But these are the overarching trends that are happening. I did give you a detailed handout on this as a takeaway you can take home with you, and you can follow up on it later. But there's a return to materiality and craft, collaboration over competition, ethical and measured use of AI. Now, I don't think that we're going to have AI. I'll go into some examples of that when I get to it, but I have been impacted by this myself, so I will go into more detail on that because you're probably curious. Museums as sanctuaries and civic spaces. There's a worldwide decline in the traditional museums, art museums, and even, well, there's ones that have to be, for historical reasons have collections, but the contemporary museums are moving in a different directions. Excuse me. Oops. Sorry. All right. And then there's a decentralizing the art narrative. That's the first thing I noticed when I wanted to get back into full-time art. I was doing it part-time for years. And a century ago, we'd go to all the galleries in New York City. And that was our goal, graduating. Get in a gallery, right? Get representation. Produce work for that gallery and sell the work. And then recently, the last 10 years, how many galleries closed in Albuquerque? 80%. 80%. Okay. How many galleries closed in Santa Fe? Quite a few. Then I walked Canyon Road and I went, I remember that gallery over there. Independent artists bought that gallery, put their studio in it, and now have their own sovereign gallery for their own work, right? So there's this change in this decentralization. Centralizing art in one place like a gallery isn't there anymore. You're talking about doing a show on a web. That's decentralization. I'm in Gallery ABQ, which, by the way, just won the 2006 Reader's Choice Award from the Albuquerque Journal. Yay. Well, anyway, in March, we hosted the National Contemporary Museum exhibition. We had an opening receptionist for the show that was attended by 250 visitors. 250 visitors came. It was so crowded, there was a line outside the gallery. And why was that? Okay, mosaics? Mosaics? Okay. This is a good example. Authentically made. Physical material craft-based practices, specifically ceramics and fiber art. I just bought, my last painting I bought, which is a couple months ago, guess what it was? It was a pastel that someone had torn up and made a collage out of that was exquisite. Exquisite. I had to have it. That was something that was authentic. It was in this return to materiality and craft and hands-on, right? The digital continuum. Traditional mediums like painting and sculpture are being reframed. This is a good example of that. Reframed alongside technology to explore human agency and touch. So there's a new accountability for art materials now. There's very few true materials anymore of one medium being shown in galleries, being collected worldwide. A lot of mixed medium type of work, or other mediums that are newer type of mediums with newer technology, resins and epoxies and things like that. Imaginative resourcefulness, use of repurposed, recycled, and found materials, authenticity, visible humanity, emotional presence, and intentional perfection. And that's why that mosaic show did so well. Our gallery made a record that month. Now this is a small gallery, with low-end artwork. I mean, we're not selling Robert Muller or Picasso's, okay? That month we sold $26,000 worth of artwork, and it was this return to this material and craft. There's a return to collaboration over competition. So there's more collaboration, getting together. And I think it's in response to this totalitarian dictatorship-like political atmosphere that's a dome over us right now, is that we're coming together saying we're in unity of voice that is moving in a different direction. There's connections across the globe. There's connections internationally. Your society is doing it. You're doing an international collaborations. Artists like spaces. Like the gallery I'm in is a LLC partnership, just sort of like the way set the same way like lawyers' offices are. And we're all independent artists, but we all own a share in the gallery, which means we all have some ownership responsibilities that we have to attend to monthly. But it is the best place I have ever been in the art world. It is just the greatest group of people, and it shows. It shows when you're there, because we're all very much respectful for each other. Ethical and measured use of AI. Artists are approaching it using constraint, setting up deliberate boundaries with intense ethical scrutiny. Even MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, had a whole, I think, a 6-month period of time where they devoted to AI art and the movement of AI art, or AI in the art world. And there was a great discussion around responsible use of AI. AI's, when I was in school, I studied AI, learned how to program AI. And when I got to Sandia, I worked with people in IT and so on that were developing AI technology. And tell you the truth, don't get scared of it, because it's only human. It's only going to be as human as you make it. It's just sort of like working with Photoshop. It's only you garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
One of those things. So, but there's an intense questioning of the use of AI, and there's a lot of AI slop out there, including AI writing, AI digital images, so on and so forth. But you can blur the lines with your artistic statement and your expression. For example, Ritna with Greenfields here, the example I gave you, is blurring these lines between graffiti and art. Graffiti is a very human thing, and but on the other hand, there is a movement in art to a resistance of digital cleanness. Digital work, you can make something look totally realistic, absolutely totally realistic. Now there's a movement in art opposite of that with the art trends, okay? I'm going to give you an example. For years now, I was working with Netflix, and they were buying my, leasing my work, clear copyright work for film, okay? And I noticed right after COVID, they stopped, and that dried up. I was working with an agent in Burbank, California, and it dried up. And it was good money. I mean, they paid me on a weekly basis for production 1/6 the total sales price. And if they rented it for 6 weeks, then they got to keep the artwork. But plus, I got a nice credit on the movie credits. So anyway, that totally dried up. I thought, and I was told the last image they wanted was a high-res image scanned, and then they digitally took that high-res image and post-production put it into the movie scene, right? So they started generating AI images for, like, if there was a Western scene and they have to have an old painting on the wall, they digitally generated those and did in post-production. My gallery that I'm in New York City right now they just contacted me because the film industry in New York does not want digital images anymore. They wanted more handmade, real, authentic, original artwork to give them an edge in their films. So I think there was like a toying around with this in the film industry, but now they've swung back the other way. So that's a good example of this rebellion against pure digital imagery. Okay. Another thing that's happening globally, actually, is the museums turning into sanctuaries, civic spaces, places where people can gather like you, and slowing down in the fast-paced world, having refuge. A lot of institutions, and MoMA's doing this right now, is that they're looking inward at their collections, looking how can we present things differently. MoMA is going into more immersive experiences, and guess where they got that idea from? Meow Wolf. Yes, Meow Wolf 10 years ago inspired this whole new thinking around what museums should be. Because Meow Wolf is considered what? Is it a commercial space? It's considered they're a museum. They are chartered as a museum. Did you know that? Okay. So the House of Eternal Return was dozens of people from Santa Fe and Albuquerque, I might say. Remember Old Factory on 5th Street that used to have those art shows over there? The one man who owned that was one of the lead people over at Meow Wolf. The reason that closed is because he had to move to Santa Fe for his job with Meow Wolf. And so it's close to home, but it created this warping of time and space, a new thought that was leading the trend. So we have that opportunity here in Albuquerque and in Santa Fe of doing those things. I like your idea of an alternative venue for all three of your shows because no one else has ever done that before. That's new thought. Okay. There's a new global connectiveness now. And people are coming together across the globe. There's different people right now. If you go to the galleries in New York, Los Angeles, in particular, San Francisco, the big heavy hitter artists right now are Eurasian, like the example that I'm giving you here of Mulpi, I think is how you pronounce her name, who are really leading the collector's market right now. But it's a different expression. The pseudo-surrealism is coming forward again. It's a rebellion against digital perfection. Okay. I forgot to tell you about, I'll leave this up front, but I was talking about collaboration as being one of the new trends. And how many of you heard of Horizon Review? It's the new arts magazine. It's Albuquerque based. This is issue number 1, sponsored by Fusion. You've all heard of Fusion, nonprofit. And you were at the open the launch, weren't you? Okay. So, it's a wonderful collective of artists, visual artists, poets, writers, songwriters, performing artists, putting together this tactical, old-fashioned, non-digital book of trends. And I was selected as being published and was paid for it. So it was real nice. So if you want to thumb through this, I'll just leave it here. It's an annual publication, so put it on your radar for the next go-round and take a look at the artwork in there. I think the Albuquerque artists that were chosen are just so forward-thinking, and they're a good expression of all of these trends that I was telling you about. So, let's see where I am here, and I did it again. Roll of artists. Okay. All right. It's not coming up here. All right, the new role of artists. Catalyst for change. This is my one takeaway I would like to see from this audience is be a catalyst for change for your collaboration that you have now. Don't challenge the status quo. Participate together. Have fun. Be interdisciplinary collaborators, just as I expressed in Horizon Review here. It was just during the launch of Horizon Review, it was just so endearing to be in that crowd of people. We had everyone from high school age all the way up to 100 years old in that room who were collaborating together. All ages, all colors, all genders, all art forms, and it was just the most amazing experience to be a part of this with that group of people. But most of all, other than being, let's see if I can get this to work, be a guardian of humanity. Encourage reflection, and the reflection that you look at, use that to generate this new cycle of creativity. And most of all, navigate this complexity that we're in. It's an entangled, complex world out there. The role of artists is to help us navigate ambiguity, offering perspectives that illuminate hidden connections and challenge assumptions. Okay. Ethically embrace technology, all technology, including all digital tools, AI, all new media, in a responsible manner. Give citations where citations are due, and use it as a tool. If you use AI to generate something, use that as a reference for what you need to get your artistic expression out there. Champion diversity. Amplify voices from diverse backgrounds. So I think of you all the time with that, Marilyn, because your work does express that. Shape the future. This, you say that the world looks to you, the IF looks to this society to shape them. Think of what your connections with them do to shape the world. So you have a big responsibility here. You have a board election coming up. Think about who should be on there and think of it in a different way. You know, think how you can do things differently or fill those positions in a different way. So this is my final thought for you. Embrace the new Renaissance. You can leave a legacy that transcends boundaries and inspires generations to come.
Very nice.
So do I have any questions, comments? Yes?
Would you please put the screen back up that has the new role for fine artists?
Oh, you know what? Let me do this instead. If anyone would like a handout of my entire presentation, you can have a complete handout.
Oh my goodness.
The only thing I ask is, I don't have a copyright on there because I just copyright my artwork that's being used for publication. But just say, it's from Carla. Okay. Any other, yes, question? Any other questions? Any other comments? I have two questions for you though. Okay. All right. So as I said in the beginning of my presentation, I had creative restlessness. Here's my two questions to leave you with. Where does your creative restlessness come from? Ask yourself, where does your creative restlessness come from? And what artistic risk do you take to satisfy this creative restlessness? And so think about those two questions, and I'll guarantee you your artwork will go up to the next level. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you.